All right. New motion unsealed in the courts is Jack Smith, the special counsel, explaining what Donald Trump did on January 6th. The Republicans, of course, and Trump himself crying themselves to sleep. Oh, no, this is the deep state telling you things I actually did. Please stop telling the truth. So, what's in it? It's as usual explosive. Look, some of it we knew around the edges. There's some new things on here, including starting a riot. There's a new line about how Trump didn't mind Pence being murdered. That's amazing. I'm going to tell you about that in a second. And then they knew the numbers were fake, all of this stuff. And so, look, guys, and don't get frustrated that MAGA's not going to believe it. If Trump told them that the sky is the grass and the grass is the sky, they'd be like, of course it is. And they try to mow the sky, right? So you don't have to worry about MAGA. The only people right now you got to worry about is undecided voters. And undecided voters that see this stuff, I mean, what else do you need to make a decision? So it's important that they learn that. In the motion, they reveal all the different things that happened, and they have the details and the quotes. So I'll give you the biggest one right up front, and then I'll tell you about the riot in a second. So federal investigators come into Trump's office on the day of January 6th, and they say, "Sir, the vice president has been sequestered because they're trying to kill him, and so we got to get the vice president to safety, and obviously they're trying to get Trump to call off the rioters, and so far he's done nothing but encourage them. In fact, after he knew that the riot had already begun, he sent out the tweet about how bad a guy Mike Pence was for wanting to certify the election." And there's the videos from the January 6th investigations of the rioters reading it and getting mad. So then they break into the building chanting, "Hang Mike Pence, hang Mike Pence." They tell Trump about this, and his reaction is, quote, "So what?" Okay. And then he adds that Mike didn't have the courage to not certify the election. In other words, as Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, told others in the room, he deserved it. Guys, how is this a close election? How is this? This should be 98-2. I get it. People vote on their identity. People vote on things that are not related to rational thinking, etc. But one of the candidates in this race, when told that his own fans and supporters are going to murder his own vice president, said, "So what? He deserves it." How are we still having a conversation about this? Well, did you know that Kamala Harris could have done more in 3.5 years? Did you know that Tim Walz misspoke or something? Guys, these are minor, normal politician stuff. You want to fight that? I'm right there with you, Democrats, Republicans, etc. But you're trying to decide who to vote for president, and one of them didn't mind being murdered, have his vice president murdered. Open and shut. It's over. It's over. Again, if you're Planet MAGA, you just won't believe anything. You won't believe that these are facts, that they're quotes from actual witnesses who've already testified to this effect, who are willing to go on the record and speak out, even though in a lot of cases they're in trouble themselves. There are things that are internal about Republicans that are not in trouble, that just they've got the records of what they said at the time. I'm going to get to all that stuff right now, okay? But already this should be over. This is insanity. This is insanity. The country's like, oh, the guy who wanted his vice president murdered and someone else. I'm gonna have to ask Socrates about this one. Okay, so now let's go on to the other atrocious things. So he had plotted to declare victory before the election was over. Of course, that's like a minor thing, but like in the normal world, that's not at all minor, right? When like today, there was a story of a Republican who tweeted out how Vance clearly won the debate, and Walz was an embarrassment in the debate. The problem is that the tweet went out before the debate, because he's going to say that no matter what. They were going to lie about what happened in the debate before they even saw the debate, because that's the current modern day Republican Party, just filled with like pathological liars. Almost all politicians lie. they just the Democrats have the decency to be a little bit more subtle and discreet about it. The Republicans are like, we're lying. Okay, so here we've gotten used to Trump saying, oh, let's declare victory whether we won or lost. We find that normal, even though we shouldn't. But here's the important line in getting ready for what to do after the election. They say, Trump said, quote, it doesn't matter if you won or lost the election. You still have to fight like hell. No, 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 no. You have to fight like hell if you're not sure who won the election. Then, hey, if you're Al Gore or George W. Bush, or you're Biden or Trump in a close race and you want a recount, yes. A hand recount, yes. Fight like hell. Go to the courts, yes. But it's if you're not sure that if you won or lost, if you know you lost, no, you don't fight like hell. No, you don't have your fans attack the Capitol and create a violent mob. No, you don't try to steal the election and terminate the Constitution as Trump said we should do. He said it publicly. You can't deny that he said he wrote it. Let's terminate all the rules, regulations, and the Constitution. How is this a close contest? One of the guys in the race literally wanted to terminate the Constitution because he didn't win. And you see right there in the documents now, he says, I don't care if we win or lose. We're going to fight like hell. We're going to try to stay in power no matter what. So now, this is not Trump, this is one of his goons in internal communication that the prosecutors found, says about their fans, quote, make them riot. And he says, do it, and has 3 exclamation points. So now what is he talking about? He's actually not talking about January 6th, but it's the mindset of, if you need to, obviously create a riot. So he initially references the Brooks Brothers riot. If you don't know what that is, in 2000, if they'd counted all the votes, Al Gore would have won the state of Florida and would have won the Electoral College. So the Republicans tried like hell. At that time, nobody knows who won. But Fox News declared victory for Bush, and all the other idiot mainstream media guys like, oh, Fox News called it. We don't want to be late. So they called it for Bush based on what they thought at the time was 537 votes. That is not statistically significant. No scientist in their right mind would say the person up or down 537 votes won before a recount. That's crazy. That's statistically insignificant. That's such a small number. So the mainstream media, because of Fox News, declared that Bush had won. So Gore fought it all the way. But as he's doing that, all the way to the courts, Republicans, please listen. Please keep an open mind. I know it's nearly impossible. And if you're an undecided voter, so Gore fights it all the way to the Supreme Court. Trump did 62 cases, lost all of them, him and his allies, all of them. And in fact, that's referenced in here as well, halfway through. So, but Gore fights in the Supreme Court, loses. And even though he was right and he had won the Electoral College, the Supreme Court said, I don't care. Stop the recount in Florida. We don't want Florida being recounted. Okay. It was just declaring Bush the winner. It was one of the worst things the Supreme Court has ever done. It was the most biased thing in the world. Of course, they should have done a recount. Gore asked for the very first thing that Trump got. Trump asked for a recount, got it immediately. Gore asked for a recount. He never got one. Never even got the recount. If you believe what Trump says and you're outraged by it, you should be way more outraged that they stole the election from Al Gore. But you're not, of course, because everybody does, tribal politics. Oh, I'm a Republican, so they should steal it from Gore, and Trump gets to steal an election, etc. I know you don't believe it, but the point here is in Miami, in order to get them to stop the recount, guys dressed up really well, like looking kind of preppy, started banging on the window and started scaring the staffers who were counting the votes, and they shut down the votes because they were worried that there was going to be a riot. It turns out they called the Brooks Brother riot, and why people were dressed so well is because they were all Republican operatives and staffers. So here, one of Trump's guys goes, why don't we just start a real riot in Detroit? They'll have to stop counting, and then we'll say that we won, even though we know if they count the rest of the votes, we lost. Because they have no morality at all. They have no bounds. And so if you say, oh yeah, as long as it's my side, I love it when we cheat and ruin democracy and terminate the Constitution. Okay, that's on you, brothers. But again, if you're an undecided voter, this is not close. You can't put these goons back in charge. They tried so hard for this coup and they couldn't pull it off, thank God. And they're like, yeah, bring us back in. We'll finish the job. Let's keep going here. I'm skipping over all the unimportant parts like the drama, stuff you already knew that he did, etc. When you get it to the made up numbers, the false numbers, that's amazing. So throughout the motion, they have all this evidence of direct quotes from the Trump guys going, well, obviously the numbers are false. Okay, and then Trump says, okay, find me 10,000 votes where illegal, undocumented immigrants voted. And so they go and look. They're like, okay, obviously the president said it. I mean, let's go look, find out. So, and then they come back, and Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, says, sir, at most, we found 12 votes that might not be legal. At most, 12. Okay. And that obviously cannot swing any of these elections. You lost by tens of thousands, which is a narrow loss in some of these swing states, but it's not 12. It's not anywhere near 12. It can't swing the outcome at all, right? And he goes, so what? Just say it. In fact, as he's berating Pence over and over, he says, you're so honest, they're going to think you're stupid. Just tell them we won. What's wrong with you? He cannot understand why someone would not lie in even the most brazen way, in a democracy shattering way, as long as it's helped them. He never understood Pence. The more you read about this, we got our massive differences on policy on Pence, and he's a religious fundamentalist in a lot of ways. And obviously, we don't agree with him on abortion and a million other things. But the brother did stand strong. Trump was like, don't be stupid. Just say we won, and then we could bring it back to the states, and we'll do the fake electors, and the fake electors will say I won. Or you know what? You just gavel it out. I'm going to get to in a second, and you just gavel me as the president, and then we'll just stay. And Pence throughout, no, I'm giving him full credit, to his eternal credit. He was like, no, sir, I'm not going to violate the Constitution. And I'm not going to say you won by the way, not just you won. I'm not going to say we won when we didn't win. So there's tons of references to false numbers. Trump won making, and as they explain, he sometimes makes up numbers out of whole cloth. Of course he does. Of course he does. He makes up everything. So he tried to get Pence to, quote, permit an unlimited filibuster of the certification, then, quote, ultimately gavel in Trump as president. So let me explain these two routes real quick. So permit an unlimited filibuster of the certification, what he's saying is just delay the proceedings so much, and then at the end, just gavel in Trump as president. So that's extra dumb. That's why they didn't go with that plot, because just saying, okay, Trump's now president and handing the gavel is not a thing. That doesn't make you president. That's the other thing you get out of this. Not only are they giant liars, they're willing to destroy the country, cause riots, have the people. They don't care about anything. They're like the most immoral people on earth, but they're also painfully stupid. They're like, well, if you bang the gavel hard enough and, you say, well, and we waited long enough, go, well, I guess there's nothing else we can do. Trump's still the president. That was your plan A? How is this a close race? I mean, that dumb should be locked up somewhere in an asylum or something. Not running for president. Now the Republicans will be like, see, he wants to lock him up. Okay. No, I'm saying he's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Okay. So by the way, what was the plan B that they went with? Why I'm obsessed with the fake elector scheme is they realize, hey, just gaveling him in as president is not a thing. We're going to have to do this in some official way. So then plan B was, and the one that they tried to execute, except for Mike Pence, was get Pence to just not certify. And if he doesn't certify, it goes back to the states. That's where we asked the Trump electors to say that he won, but they wouldn't do it because they realized it was illegal and unconstitutional. So then the Trump team got a whole new set of fake electors. Both sides already have their electors. Trump already had electors, but they wouldn't commit a crime. So he got a whole bunch of Republicans who would commit the crime, And that's why they've been arrested in a lot of the swing states and to sign fake documents about how Trump had won. So then they go to the states and they needed the Republican legislatures to go along and go, yes, the fake electors are the real electors. Then they bring it back to the House and the House goes, oh, I don't know who won. So how do you decide when you don't know who won? You vote by state, the House votes, and the House is not done on a majority vote, but on a state by state vote. And the Republicans had more states than the Democrats did. So as long as they created any kind of controversy about who actually won, it would go back to the House, and the House would declare Trump the winner, right or wrong. Because then they would say, well, nobody, at a bare minimum, nobody knows, so we're voting Trump. Okay. So that was the plan. And that's actually not a bad plan. That plan would have worked. This is the one thing Trump is not wrong about. That plan had an excellent chance of working if Pence didn't certify. Another reason why eternal credit to Pence. So why the riot, by the way, in case you guys haven't heard me explain this before? If you've already got this thing set in stone, well, when Pence doesn't do his part and he goes, no, I'm going to certify the actual results of this election, well, then they had to create a different disturbance that delays the certification so that it could go back to the states and they can get the fake electors. So that's why he needed them to rush the Capitol. And that's why at the end, one of the things that they explain is that, and this was already public, Steve Bannon says on January 5th, the day before January 6th, 2 hours after talking to Trump, he goes on air and says, all hell is going to break loose tomorrow. They had already planned the riot. And they get people to go in, bust into the Capitol so that they cannot certify the election. That's why Pence, his Secret Service, tried to remove him from the building, and they try to remove Nancy Pelosi and the others. And here again, both Pence, Pelosi, and the others don't get enough credit. They all refuse to leave the building. They said, if we leave the building and we don't certify this election, they're going to try this crap in the states. So they all stayed in the building until they certified the election later that night. They deserve a lot of credit for that. And that was a democracy-saving move right there. So that's why they had to create the riot. And that's why he got everybody riled up against Pence, because he was trying to put all the pressure in the world to not certify the election, because that was the linchpin for their plan to steal this thing. And so that's why they were chanting, hang Mike Pence, as they went in. That's why Trump was in a rage about Pence. And when Mark Meadows went into his office and told him, and here, this is this is the so what is other guys, the Mark Meadows case. Mark Meadows, his chief of staff, goes in. This one we already knew. It's not part of the new motion. And says, Mr. President, they're trying to murder your vice president. And he says, Mike deserved it. And he won't call off the rioters. By the way, there's also, there's the monstrousness of that action, but there's also a little bit of strategy in there. If they murder the vice president, they're not certifying the election that day. There's literally no one. The vice president certifies an election. If there is no vice president, you can't certify it, and then you bring in the fake electors. Trump is actually evil. He's a deeply immoral, sick man. So, but I know on Planet MAGA, he's a saint, and the undecided voters can't tell. But to be fair to the undecided voters, guys, they're not getting the same information we're getting. If they knew all this information, it'd be a landslide. That's why you got to go talk to friends and neighbors and stuff and tell them the reality of this. Okay, let me finish up here. The last part was just amusing. So they're talking to all these different Republicans and trying to convince them to go along. And a lot of Republicans, to their credit, don't. Right. So the governor of Arizona, Doug Ducey, Trump calls him and says, oh, I got a lot of evidence that I won Arizona. And Governor Ducey's like, oh, great. Can you send it right over? And then Trump doesn't send anything. And then they're like, okay, now say that I won. And he's like, but you didn't send any evidence. You said you had evidence and then you didn't send any. So I'm not going to say you won. They're like, why not, huh? What are you, stupid? Okay. So that's the kind of stuff they were doing. And then they have all these insane conspiracy theories. I mean, you know how insane it has to be for a Republican to go, whoa, that's too much, right? Ronna McDaniel, who would say almost anything. Why did they get rid of her as the head of the RNC? That was kind of weird. She did everything that Trump had asked for. See, now this explains it because the one thing we didn't know about Ronna McDaniel is when they went to her with their ludicrous conspiracy theories about how Trump had won, she said, "This is quote effing nuts." So she's like, "You guys are nuts. What are we really trying to do a coup here? Is that what we're trying to do? No, you're effing nuts. I'm not saying that things that didn't happen happened. I'm not going to lie like that." That's why they got rid of her afterwards. She's like, disloyal, won't destroy America for Trump. Trump's obviously more important than America. Get rid of these people who believe in America and our democracy and the Constitution. Or the Trump already said terminate the Constitution. And here's Ronna McDaniel still saying that we're nuts. How dare she? Okay. Guys, not close. If you try to terminate the Constitution and your vice president, you probably shouldn't be president.